Hello and welcome to another edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is Tuesday, July 9th, 2019. Marching right through summer with these warm temperatures, aren't we? In just a moment, we're going to be on our way to your aviation, marine, and public forecast. Remember, you can always reach out to get your forecast by dialing 1-800-472-0391 or going to our webpage at weather.gov/Alaska and just clicking on the map. Now let's get started right away with the map concerns of the day. We're going to take a look first at these areas highlighted in red as they are your warnings, as noted up here just above my head there. And those warnings, those are for red flag warnings for fire danger. Now this fire danger is going to be on your Wednesday forecast because we have thunderstorms that could develop, so those thunderstorms could spark new fires. So be very careful out there, and if you have any fires going, be sure to put them out. Do not leave them unattended, as we are experiencing a very high fire danger as we go through this hot and dry summer. Also, this area across the western areas of the Kenai, looking at those dense smoke issues to continue. I'm going to push our map forward so you can focus in more on the interior. The interior from east to west, we're looking at dense smoke. Both locations, all these locations are down to a half a mile at times. So look for reduced visibilities, especially in the morning hours. Also in the afternoon when those plumes start billowing up because of the convective properties during the day. So high fire danger for these locations. Looking at your fire danger map updated actually today, we're looking at high fire danger for everything south of the Brooks Range, basically, with extreme fire danger across much of the state. The only areas that we're not seeing in that high fire danger location is the southeast panhandle and out across the Aleutians. So looking at the weather that's going to be changing, let's look at the upper levels. You can see that the ridge is spinning counterclockwise across the western areas of the state. Still, we've got some clouds sneaking in now across the southern areas, so that's something new that hasn't been seen for days. Clouds, yay! That keeps things a little bit cooler, and that's where we're hoping to trend the next few days. Now the bearing, we've got a very active low pressure system out there towards the west, spinning with the center near AKwx. So if I put this into motion one more time, you can see that looping right at the end there. Now looking at the interior, we mainly keeping the moisture across the Gulf. Nothing is moving yet across the Kenai, but expect this marine air mass to creep further into the Kodiak area during the overnight hours. So our surface map for today, we did see that low stratus and fog across the Gulf and low stratus and fog across the Bering, but for different reasons, as we have a low pressure system that's moving a front across the eastern Aleutians back towards the western waters there. This is a 1001 millibar low, not terribly strong or impressive, producing winds out of the east direction approximately 25 to 40 miles per hour. And on the backside, of course, we've got some westerly winds just underneath that low pressure system. Now, across the interior areas of the state, these are just boundaries extending from an upper level wave that's dropping just to the east of the state. So one boundary to the north and this other boundary here just south of the ridge that's now over just near the Bering Strait location. That's going to allow some shortwave activity to move across the interior locations. And for this evening, we're going to see those thunderstorms possible mainly across the Alaska Range. Mainly isolated storms tonight for the western Alaska Range. Possible shower activity for the southeast, but primarily staying dry with fog in the early evening, staying off in the Gulf locations. So looking at fog possibilities across the Gulf and also along the north coast there, and across much of the Bering, you'll see reduced visibilities. As we head into Wednesday morning, especially, look for those same locations to see fog to start the day. Now, for the southeast, they might stay out of the fog just one more day, and they will continue, however, to see the hazy conditions, which is hard to distinguish from the clouds that are out there. Now, thunderstorm development across the Alaska Range will be a little bit more numerous for your Wednesday afternoon, and for that reason, we have those red flags out there for any storms that develop. They could have quite a bit of lightning strikes associated with them. Now, to the north, mainly staying in a cooler flow pattern with a ridge just to the north and the low pressure system sinking along the Alcan border. Now, for the southwestern locations, that will be in between a ridge and low pressure, so might see some of these showers making it up across the eastern Alaska Peninsula, and very foggy out there to the west associated with this low pressure system. As we head into Thursday, really not much change other than that low pressure system just continuing to spin out to the west, and a resurgence of moisture coming up to the central Aleutians. For these interior locations, we have ongoing smoke, and then we'll also see that ridge really breaking down on Thursday, and we're really expecting to see some possible rain chances, better rain chances for your Thursday with that ridge further breaking down. So thunderstorms or showers mainly across the south and southwest locations, with fog across the north and northwest coast locations. And for the southeast, look for an increase of showers. And for Thursday morning, possibly the area stratus and fog will be pushing into the southeast, so that could be problematic for aviators or marine areas for your Thursday morning. However, the winds are going to be relatively weak during that time. For the Kenai, looking at that smoke to continue up through the Susitna Valley, all across the interior I have already mentioned, and the thunderstorm activity could make it all the way towards the west coast for Thursday afternoon and evening. Let's take a look at your temperatures for your lows for going into tomorrow morning, Wednesday. Looking at mainly 50 to 60 degrees across the state, with cooler temps into the lower 40s for the northern coast. For the areas across the Bering, steady temperatures, 40, 45 degrees, maybe increasing Wednesday afternoon up to around 50 to 55, staying really much cooler across the Alaska Peninsula. Temperatures across the interior will be the warmest, between 70 and 85 degrees, a few degrees warmer across the thermal ridge locations. To the north, once again, in the mid-40s, and for the southeast and Gulf locations, between 60 to 70 degrees. We see that transition slightly warmer inland will be between 75 to 85 degrees. Now for your Thursday morning to start your day, one thing to notice on this map is that there are cooler temperatures that are going to be settling down towards the Brooks Range. So back into the mid-30s for the overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning. And then temperatures generally are going to be in the mid-50s to near 60 degrees once again, which is kind of a persistent pattern for the state, and dropping down into the mid-40s for the Bering and Alaska Peninsula. Now, to finish off your temperature maps here, we're going to take a look at Thursday afternoon. Thursday afternoon, just notice the temperature trends are going to be a little bit cooler. So we're talking about temperatures reaching 75 degrees on average across the southern areas of the state, from the Copper River out to the southwest. And temperatures will still reach to the 85 mark across some of the interior, but it's not going to be as widespread, so that's notable. And a little bit cooler temperatures across that north coast as well. Looking across the Bering, temperatures will creep back up to 50 and 60 degrees. And then for the southeast, looking at temperatures cooler there in the upper 60s. So with notable temperatures near that Dixon entrance around 61. So that's an improvement if you were looking for cooler temperatures heading into the end of the week.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
And now on to your aviation forecast, taking a look first at the Gulf areas. We will see some widespread IFR conditions creeping into the eastern waters, but just staying mainly out of the southeast. However, the interior is going to be widespread IFR conditions during the morning. Smoke is going to be an issue across the interior down through the Susitna Valley and the northern Kenai. Along the north coast, expect IFR conditions to start your Wednesday out, as well as much of the Bering moving into the southwest coast there, all IFR conditions to MVFR conditions. Now, looking at your afternoon, some improvement here across the northern and western coast of the Gulf, and we'll see some improvement there for Kodiak up to MVFR. However, most of the west coast is going to stay under those MVFR conditions through the day, and now your north coast also staying under MVFR to IFR. We will see some afternoon thunderstorms developing, also through the evening, more isolated the further west you go, and then across the southeast, possible thunderstorm there, but with the low pressure moving up, we'll mainly see MVFR moving back into the southeast. As we head into Thursday, look for conditions starting very similar as we start on Wednesday with that widespread IFR creeping a little bit more into the southeast, and we'll see that IFR conditions finally just pushing into the southeast as well, with conditions creeping into the Susitna Valley and all along the southern parts of the interior. The north coast starting once again, IFR conditions with MVFR conditions along at least the west coast with IFR widespread across the Bering waters. Kodiak Island goes IFR, improving slightly across the southwest there in Kodiak to MVFR during the afternoon. Expect those thunderstorms to once again develop across the Alaska range, possibly a little bit more widespread along the western Alaska range for your Thursday afternoon. For the north and coastal areas, we'll see MVFR conditions with a widespread IFR across the Bering. Some improvement across the Gulf, but we'll see a mix of IFR and MVFR, with that spreading a little bit better into the southeast and all the panhandle locations. Now let's take a look at your passes in more depth. We'll see Anatuvik Pass at VFR for your Wednesday, as well as Adigan will be VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass will both be MVFR, and we'll see Rainy Pass MVFR with that possible thunderstorm in the afternoon, and Windy will see IFR for Wednesday, and Isabel is also IFR on your Wednesday. Mentasta, IFR. Tanita Pass will be VFR. Portage will go from IFR to MVFR, and then Chilkoot and White Pass will go from VFR decreasing to MVFR late day. Now let's take a look at your freezing levels during Wednesday morning. The surface freezing level is just to the north of the north coast there, and then an increase in heights from 8 to 10,000 feet across much of the state along the Gulf at 10,000 feet, and then a decrease across the Bering Sea from 8 to 6,000 feet. Looking at your icing, main concerns are across the low pressure out to the west above 6,000 feet. And then your jet stream is located, the streak is going to be just south of the Aleutian chain there at 120 knots, low pressure just south of the Kamchatka Peninsula, taking away the formation of this ridge that has been dominating for days. So looking more of a focus at low pressure to the west and just south of the Gulf. Now at the 9,000 foot level, we still have a dominant high pressure pattern across the state, a little bit of a wind speed max across the northeastern Beaufort Sea coast due to low pressure settling just to the north there. and northwesterly flow at 35 knots and 20 to 25 knots around the south and southeastern areas of the Gulf, with the low approaching from the North Pacific. And to the west, we also have a low pressure system with a speed max in the northern waters out of the east direction between 40 to 45 knots. Now, the eastern Gulf water is a little bit stronger there as well, between 25 and 40 knots. So looking at the 3,000 foot level, I apologize, I missed your speeds on here, but it's a stack system, very similar speeds. You can count on 25 to 40 knots at the 3,000 foot surface here, and then a little bit stronger, 45 knots along the northern part of that low pressure system. Mainly across the state, though, winds are going to be light, between 10 to 15 knots, variable directions. So main areas for turbulence are out to the west, and we'll see those thunderstorms developing in the afternoon.
On March 11, 2011, a powerful tsunami hit Japan, destroying cities and villages. As the water receded back into the ocean, it pulled what remained of buildings, cars, boats, and homes along with it. Scrap metals, plastics, and objects of all shapes and sizes either sank near the shore or floated away. In the days that followed, large masses of floating debris could easily be seen by satellite imagery and aerial photos. In the wake of this disaster, NOAA is assessing the potential impact that the debris may have on U.S. shores. So, where will this debris go, and when will it get there? To help answer those questions, scientists are using computer models to estimate the debris' path, using its starting location in the tsunami zone and historical weather and ocean conditions. The findings are that some debris could pass near or wash ashore in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands as early as this winter. Debris may also approach the west coast of the United States in 2013 and potentially circle back to the main Hawaiian Islands in 2014. But scientists caution that there are limitations to what computer models can tell us, now that the debris has moved out of satellite view. And with currents and winds in the Pacific constantly changing, there is no guarantee that the debris will stay on the predicted path. Items will sink along the way, or break up and disperse in many directions. Despite these unknowns, NOAA and its partners are collecting data, assessing possible impacts, and making preparations in case debris does wash ashore. The 2011 tsunami in Japan reminds us that the devastation that happens on land can also become a marine debris issue at sea.
Imagine all of this underwater. In a major tsunami, it could happen. In this part of Washington state, it's happened before, hundreds of years ago. Sometime in the future, it will likely happen again. But we can be ready. If a tsunami strikes, this school will provide a place for people to ride it out above the waves.
We're in Westport, Washington, and right behind me is the very first tsunami vertical evacuation center in the United States.
We will now begin the tsunami evacuation.
This is an emergency. Please walk to the nearest exit. Go to the stair tower and proceed up the stairs.
Tsunamis are a potential hazard for low-lying coastal areas. That's why many coastal communities have plans in place to get people to safety, high ground or inland, where they can be beyond the reach of a tsunami. Often there are signs showing where to go and where to gather. Most tsunamis are caused by underwater earthquakes along subduction zones, where two of Earth's plates collide and one is forced under the other. Westport and other Pacific Northwest coastal communities are especially at risk because one of these zones lies just offshore. It's called the Cascadia Subduction Zone. An earthquake here caused a tsunami in 1700 that flooded shores as far away as Japan. Experts say it's just a matter of time before it happens again. Since the subduction zone is so close, a tsunami like the one in 1700 could strike before people in some low-lying areas could get to high ground or inland. And Westport doesn't have a lot of high ground or easy routes inland.
If we get an earthquake or a tsunami, we're going to get a lot of water in the area really quickly, and we needed a place to go. So our community built this brand new school, and above our gym and cafeteria, we have a roof. And so the idea is that we'll get all of our students up, and anybody from the community who needs to get up, they can get up there as well.
Ocosta Elementary School might seem like a normal school, but look more closely. It's engineered to withstand monster waves. Tsunami vertical evacuation shelters must be able to resist the powerful forces that a tsunami brings. Hydrodynamic, buoyant, hydrostatic, and debris impact forces and strong currents. They're also designed to help people get to safety quickly.
There are 4 big staircases on each corner of the building, and each one of those staircases is 8 feet wide, and we can get the whole school evacuated in about 4.5 minutes.
Everybody should be at a 0.
On the roof of the building, there is water and food and buckets and shelters and tarps and blankets and different things so that we can be up there for 2, 3, maybe 4 days while we wait for rescue.
You can go to the top and you know you'll be safe. It feels really nice to have a special building because you feel protected.
This community decided that a tsunami evacuation center was important because they didn't have anywhere to go, and they decided to use their money to build the building. The additional cost is anywhere between 10 and 20% of the actual building cost itself, and that's really a sound investment for a lot of protection. You may be there a while, but you're safe and you're secure, and that's the most important thing.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
All right, we are going to wrap up the show with your marine forecast, starting off with the ice edge across the northern coast, looking at a large area for the percentage concentration below 80%. It's almost passable, and we're going to see that melting continue as we head through the next few days. Across the southeast, bouncing over to the marine forecast for Wednesday, looking at winds primarily 15 knots or under. Inner channels are going to be 2 foot for your seas, and outer waters are going to be between 4 to 5 feet. And wind directions are primarily going to be turning towards the south direction as we head into Thursday, but they're going to be much lighter for the outer waters with the stronger speeds across the inner channels, looking at seas between 3 to 5 feet across the area waters for your Thursday. Now taking a look at your northwestern areas of the Gulf, primarily lighter wind speeds across the Gulf waters around 10 knots, with seas between 2 to 4 feet across the Cook Inlet. A little bit stronger wind speeds coming up from the south there at 20 knots. Tip of Cook Inlet there is going to be more of a southeasterly direction at 15 knots, and seas across Prince William Sound will be out of the west, 2 feet for your seas there, 4 to 5 feet seas across the Cook Inlet location. For your Thursday forecast, primarily southerly flow across the entire area between 10 to 20 knots. So winds aren't really that bad, and seas are going to be between 2 to 4 feet. So a relatively benign day on Thursday. However, remember, we're going to have that marine layer for both your Wednesday and Thursday lingering across the Gulf. Now for the Alaska Peninsula on Wednesday, looking at primarily a westerly flow, 10, possibly 15 knots out there between 1 to 5 foot seas. The higher seas are going to be south of the Alaska Peninsula. On your Thursday, expect change of wind direction there, but a little bit more of a southwesterly flow going up into Bristol Bay. But otherwise, southwesterly flow south of the chain, northerly flow, north of the peninsula, not the chain. And then we'll see seas 2 to 5 feet once again. So relatively quiet conditions for the Alaska Peninsula on Wednesday and Thursday. Out to the west, the stronger winds are, let me step over to the, so you can see around Shimia, the western Aleutians, the stronger small craft winds, that's where you're going to find them. We're going to see winds between 15 to 25 knots, the strongest out there to the west. And then seas will range between 2 to 7 feet with the higher seas along the central and western Aleutian chain. As we head into Thursday, very persistent forecast, a little bit stronger winds though picking up across your eastern and central Aleutians. Change of wind direction, more southeast to easterly flow with the low pressure system moving up from the North Pacific, 30 knots. So small crafts across the central Aleutian area for your Thursday. And then looking out to the west, a little bit lighter speeds, change of wind directions out towards the western Aleutians there. Seas on this day will range between 4 to 6 feet to 7 feet just south of the Atka area. Now let's take a look at the west coast. Flow out of the north between 10 to 15 knots, so fairly quiet conditions with seas between 2 to 4 feet. And then for your Thursday, looking at a little bit of an increase of onshore flow along the west coast there, and seas will be between 2 to 3 feet. Looking at your north and west coast, stronger winds along the northwestern coastal locations, small craft advisories there. Seas and ice-free waters are going to be between 2 to 5 feet. For your Thursday forecast, looking at lighter wind speeds, overall 10 to 20 knots between 2 to 4 foot seas and ice-free waters. And then let's take a look at recapping your forecast for tonight. Possible thunderstorms mainly along the Alaska range with a shower or two across much of the southern areas and possibly also across the southeast. Main concerns are going to be the fog across the area waters and smoke for these interior and southern interior locations. Now, across the north there, fog as well for the coastal locations as we head into your day Wednesday. Thunderstorms will be on the increase, mainly across the Alaska range and towards the west coast. And the low pressure system will continue across the Bering into your Thursday with a smoky and thunderstorm pattern continuing through the afternoon.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.